Welcome to Nutrition Without Compromise, a podcast brought to you by Orlo Nutrition. We believe that nutrition shouldn't be an either or, that you should never have to sacrifice your morals for your health or that of our home planet. Join natural products veteran Corinna Bellizzi and experts from around the globe as they discuss healthy solutions that are better for you and better for the planet.
Hello and welcome to another interview episode of Nutrition Without Compromise. Today we're going to dig into the topic of men's health as we reconnect with Dr. Jerry Bailey. Dr. Jerry is a certified nutritionist, acupuncturist, chiropractic, and functional medicine physician at Lakeside Holistic Health with over 2 decades in his field. He is a prominent expert in men's medicine who has seen tens of thousands of patients in over those 2 decades of practice. Wow, Dr. Jerry Bailey, welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So good to see you again. And what is it? The summertime here and weather's nice. You see my arms exposed. I wonder what you're up to this summer. How are you enjoying the summer months?
Sweating and sitting in air conditioning. We have hit, I'm up in northern Idaho, and we have had the 100-degree temperatures for about a week now, and we're not used to that. So, but enjoying it. My youngest is in basketball and football, so we are, the freshman year of high school now, and just the chaos and mayhem of our schedule is now becoming even more busy. It's like you're busy, and then all of a sudden you didn't realize how busy you weren't till you added something else in, and now we're busier than ever. So that, and then our oldest is going into his senior year, and he's involved in art and his art stuff and working, and so we're very much busier than what we used to be, and we thought we were busy before, but enjoying it.
Well, and you're also a father of boys, so I'm sure you've encountered a variety of health challenges over the years, probably broken bones and mending fences, right?
Oh yeah. Boys are boys. Luckily, our boys are good, and we've taught them well, and they pretty much at this point at 14 and 17, they can take care of themselves, which is good, and they take care of us a lot of times. So they'll cook dinner for us and do our laundry and do all this stuff. So I think we've done something right some days, but other days it's like, how did that come out of you?
And so you're telling me that there's hope. I've got a 6 and a 9-year-old, both boys as well. So one day perhaps they'll do their own laundry and make me a meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
I understand that you run your practice with your wife, who's also a physician. So I wonder perhaps if you could share with our audience the common health complaints that you serve men with.
Yeah, for men, really what happens often is they come in and they have fatigue. They are kind of lost in life. They're feeling kind of stuck in a pattern that they don't see a way out of. They don't want out, but they want to see things better for themselves. They want to have better energy. They want to have better drive. They want to have better sex drive. They want to be interested in their marriage again. They want to be interested in life again. And so that's a lot of the overviewing stuff that guys will say. And then as you dig deeper, you start seeing is they're, having issues with memory. They're having issues with brain fog. They're having issues with potential erectile dysfunction or performing sexually. They're noticing that they're gaining weight in the abdomen and throughout the body and just don't feel like they used to anymore.
So in that state that they're less likely to potentially tell a female physician that they're encountering some of these challenges, I would imagine. They're more comfortable with a guy.
For sure. I mean, it's particularly when you get into the sexual aspect of issues they have going on, they definitely don't want to open up that can of worms often with a female doc or nurse practitioner, whomever they're seeing. Some do, but a lot just are like, I don't want to share that. I'd rather talk to a guy about it.
Well, and it seems that it would be a sensitive topic in a way, as they might even feel like they're perhaps less virile, less manly if they're encountering these issues. But this brings to mind a common health issue that men face. We talk about menopause, we talk about women's hormones all the time, but many men do suffer from low testosterone levels and they don't even know it. So, what causes low testosterone, first off? And also, how would you identify that, even if you hadn't gone through testing yet? And then how might you approach treating that?
Yeah, three prong approach there. First one, testosterone itself is, how do they feel with it? What do they notice? And they notice, they're just not working the way they used to. Right?
Hmm.
The energy is low, the body fat's accumulating through there, and noticing muscle mass has gone down. They're not as strong as they used to be. They're not as balanced as they used to be when they try to do things. They notice, just some stumbling and bumbling through, movement, other things that's going on from them for there. And so that's
Hmm.
kind of like the main thing there.
Well, if you're looking at how you might identify that, if you haven't gone through a battery test yet, and I should preface this with the fact that this is offered for education and informational purposes only. We're not here to
Mhm.
treat, diagnose, or cure, and there's no patient-provider relationship formed between myself and Dr. Jerry or you and the audience. But really, what we're here to do is to help you kind of see a clearer path or even identify when you might need to ask for help. One of the things that I heard, for instance, when we interviewed Dr. Sean Tassone, who introduced us both in the first place, was that
Mhm.
even women will often suffer from low testosterone and feel much better when they get some of this supplementally. But that there
Mhm.
can also be an issue when a male is getting testosterone as a topical treatment and then having intimate relationships with their partner, and then their partner is getting overdosed on testosterone without really knowing that was happening in the first place. So this can be
That,
a complicated thing. This is
yeah.
hormones, and hormones react a number of ways in different people
Mhm.
and also in different sexes. We both have testosterone. I have testosterone. You have
Mhm.
testosterone. You have
Yeah.
estrogen. I have estrogen. They
Great.
aren't like completely exclusive to one sex or
Right.
the other. But I guess the root of my question is what would be your first signs? Like you said, you're feeling low energy, you might not
Mhm.
feel as strong as you once were. And I think often we've got this perspective that, well, that's just part of aging, but we don't have to age
Mhm.
that way. And I think part and parcel of the reason that a lot of people in their 40s look like much younger than
Mhm.
they're in their 40s is because they're taking better physical care of themselves.
Yeah.
So I guess that I'll just leave that in your court. And then, so you're identifying how you might have an issue or where to look, and then how you might start that treatment, whether or not it includes drugs.
Yeah. It is. It's understanding. Really, often it starts with how they're feeling. Like we said, is they're just not feeling themselves anymore. Their energy's gone. They're just feeling punky there. So when they come in for that, then we talk about looking at how do we define that via lab work, really, because we need to know. And so we'll run blood work. We'll look at your testosterone and your free testosterone. Both really important to know. Often docs will just, and even the TRT clinics that just do TRT testosterone therapy, they'll just run a total testosterone. And as long
Hmm.
as you're above the low, which is around 250, 280, depending on the lab, you're considered fine. Well, that's not optimal. We ideally want you between 6 and 800 for the most part in your blood levels there. So that's really key to look at. But then that's good to know the amount you have. But really, you want to look at the free that's there, which is you're available to use. And I've seen totally normal looking total testosterone in the 6 to 800s, and I've seen their freeze at 6.
Hmm.
And ideally, you want to be around 18 to 20 for your free level. Again, that's a particular lab that you look at. Some may look a little higher, low, depending on the ranges there. But right around 18 is where you want to be. And 6 is super low. So if they just ran a total testosterone, you're going to miss the whole picture that the person's not converting to an active testosterone, free testosterone there.
Hmm.
That happens typically in the liver, as that conversion happens. So if there's something going on with nutrient depletions, or the liver is a little bit sluggish from either, an alcoholic fatty liver disease, or itself from the new term, which used to be called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now they call it metabolic dysfunctional associated fatty liver disease. So the metabolism itself is messed up from fattiness within the liver. So if there's something like that going on, you're not going to convert to the free testosterone to be able to use. We'll also look at estrogens, because that's very important to look at in men, and see where that level is. Often we'll see low testosterone and a higher estrogen. And in that case, what we'll see is actually more brain fog, more brain memory issues. We'll see more adipose growth around the abdomen, so that apple appearance in the guys, the belly looking, or even into the chest tissue, the breast tissue there will actually grow also. Within there. So those are the key things, really looking at labs there. And then we go a little step further and we look at what's called the Dutch test in particular, to look at how you're metabolizing your hormones. That becomes very important to know, because if we're going to prescribe testosterone to a guy, whether it be through a cream, whether it be through injection, whether it be through pellet therapy itself, we need to know how your body is actually metabolizing the hormones itself. So that way we know how to put key nutritional pieces in, or potentially a medication to block the conversion to an estrogen in those guys.
Right. Because if they get over consumption of testosterone, it can convert to estrogen. That's the issue that you're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
Even
So,
if it's a normal level of, or they would, not necessarily too much testosterone, but if they naturally convert to too much estrogen. I'm one of those guys that I naturally produce a higher amount of estrogen because I have a lower testosterone, but I convert over to the estrogen. So I have to take an aromatase blocker so I don't convert over to that estrogen metabolism.
wow. And isn't this problem also exacerbated once you start to develop a lot of excess adipose tissue? Because my understanding is that that fat is estrogenic. So the more
Mhm.
fat you have, the more estrogen you're essentially producing. Is that accurate?
Yes, what's now considered fat is now considered its own endocrine organ, where we
Hmm.
have the testes, we have the ovaries, we have the pancreas, we have the adrenal glands. Now, adipose tissue in the body is considered its own endocrine organ, and it has its own array of hormones that it releases to feed itself, essentially. So as that fat gets more metabolically active, starts growing more, it starts releasing more hormones to pull to it, which in turn increases the estrogen metabolism.
So isn't that also true of muscles? Muscles are now considered an organ that has something to do with our hormone levels. Is that correct? Or am
Yeah,
I
for sure.
oversimplifying?
As we age and we tend to have sarcopenia or loss of muscle mass, we become less metabolically active. So the more muscle mass we have, the more longevity we can potentially have, or what we call an organ reserve there. If something catastrophic happens, we have the ability to fight it off and survive because we have larger muscle mass. So yeah, the more muscle mass we have, the healthier we age, and we have an increased longevity from that.
Does it impact our testosterone levels if you have more muscle mass?
Yes, for sure. The more muscle mass you have, the more it can drive the body to, say, produce more testosterone also.
Right. So in a way, then the body dictates a portion of what our hormone balance is going to be, and this might be part of the reason that people, like women in particular, when we go to the gym and we put on more muscle, we suddenly also feel like we have more energy and things along these lines too, right? It's one part physical fitness, it's also one part muscle.
Yeah, for sure. And because the muscle is more metabolically active as tissue, it's not just kind of hanging out there doing nothing. So your metabolism does speed up, your energy does increase because those mitochondria become more hyperactive. And in turn, the
Mhm.
cells become more soft and supple. Really, is what we want. When the body's really truly inflamed, the cells become very, very rigid, and the information going in and out does not happen very well. So the more healthier we are, the more muscle mass we have, the better our metabolisms run, the better our hormones are balanced, the more soft and supple our cells are, and the healthier we are. And fish oil really does help with that. The omega-3 fatty acids helps with that softness within the cells.
Right. So I'll just put one point of correction there because it's not necessarily fish, it's the omega-3, EPA, and DHA, right?
Right. That's why
Yeah.
it's kind of, the
Yeah.
omega-3s
Everybody like, people
added
think
that.
fish oil first, like, we did a really good job of drilling in that we didn't
Right.
mean flax oil when we said omega-3, and now it's
Mhm.
gone to the other extreme of saying fish oil instead of the source, which is EPA, DHA. Now,
Yes. Yeah. EPA, DHA.
I wonder if you could share with our audience, the reality of how omega-3s impact our hormones, because it's my understanding that they actually are part and parcel to the creation of hormones in our bodies.
Yeah, it's a fat, and a fat becomes cholesterol in the body. The cholesterol itself is the precursor for all of your reproductive hormones. So your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, your DHEA, even down the line of your stress response, the cortisol within there, and then the cortisol metabolites, and then aldosterone also, which is a marker for your blood pressure regulation. So omega-3s, omega-6s, the fatty acids, those have a huge amount of effects on cholesterol or on hormone levels in the body too. There's been quite a good amount of research that actually shows that having a good, omega-3, EPA, DHA combination and in the body itself and having higher levels actually promotes higher testosterone levels, promotes testicular growth, and decreases erectile dysfunction issues. Those main three things are really because the body becomes inflamed, and so those cells get rigid, and those EPAs and DHA really help to soften those cells and allow those metabolites and metabolism to start working the way it's supposed to.
So it gets the inflammation under control, because if you have too much of one and not enough of the other, and guess what? We basically don't get enough omega-3. So we
Mm-hmm.
tend to suffer from that side. We get more of an inflammatory cascade, which means that our body produces more cortisol, which is affected, creates more inflammation. And we end up in this kind of vicious negative cycle where we don't get enough of the right hormones and we get too much of the wrong hormone. Not to say cortisol is always bad, but when you have out of control inflammation, it kind of just spirals into joint pain and other issues that you might experience, right?
Exactly. And often too, what we see often with guys and gals is sleep issues. When testosterone is low for both genders, male and females, the sleep becomes a major issue. They don't sleep the way they used to. So as we supplement with either a booster that we can use, or if we go to testosterone therapy, that's one of the first things they notice is they like, wow, like I'm sleeping hard and waking up rested in the morning again.
I hadn't thought about that. I didn't realize there was a connection between testosterone and sleep. So,
Mhm.
might that be part of the reason that women, as they start to go into menopause, often complain of not being able to sleep through the night?
Yeah,
You think
for
it's
sure.
related?
For sure. And our ladies that we do the TRT with, that's one of the first things they notice too is like, holy cow, I'm sleeping again. Like I feel rested. I feel like I'm recovering again. I don't feel the anxiety and the rush and the stress like I used to. I feel a little more in balance.
Now, I made the decision at the end of last year to get myself a fitness watch again.
Perfect.
This one is Samsung.
Mhm.
But it actually tracks for me my sleep at night, so I get a sleep score every night. They actually assign a sleep animal. At one point, I was a penguin, now I'm a lion. Yeah, I can't really tell you what those things mean, but I think it means I'm sleeping better. So, it's possible to change your sleep patterns through diet
Mhm.
and through nutrition, also through,
Mhm.
of course, lifestyle. I have noticed that as I lift heavier, I'm sleeping better. But I've
Mhm.
also noticed a shift as I moved away from consuming animal products. And this is something that I found really surprising. For one, I'm lifting heavier and I made progression more quickly than I was before when I was eating an omnivore based diet. The
Mhm.
other piece is that my body temperature is normal for the first time, like ever.
Good.
And
Good.
so what I mean by that is I'm clocking in at 98.6 and I'm
Perfect.
hypothyroid. So I've been
Mhm.
since 2009 taking a Nature Throid style product. It's another
Mhm.
off brand, but it's desiccated porcine thyroid. And
Yeah.
my dosage ended up feeling like too much. So it started to impact my sleep. I went back down a little bit and suddenly I'm feeling great and I'm maintaining my temperature
Mhm.
at about that 98.6 pretty routinely. I tended to wake up before at about 97.2 and hover around that for the most of the day, like 97.4, 97, that was
Mhm.
my normal. So I know that I'm an N of one, but by cleaning my diet and really focusing on getting a lot of protein, but from plant sources, while at the same time that I'm not probably getting as many endocrine disruptors because I'm not eating, animal meats that have been grown in this, let's just say,
Mhm.
conventional capacity, because even
Exactly.
though I would mostly eat organic and, regenerative in my own home, if you go out and eat, what are the chances? What are
Mhm.
you getting, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I really do think it's from cleaning the diet and, at the same time having that level of activity, because 'cause I've been this active my whole life. But
Mhm.
I've never been quite as clean in my eating. Is this something that you see in your practice, or am I just, some
Some
plant-based weirdo over here?
some statistical outlier, right? Yeah.
I mean, I
No.
don't know. I'm an N of one, but I'm just curious of what you've seen because again, it's like I've been in this industry a long time. I've tried lots of different supplements. I have,
Mhm.
been on kind of the extreme of eating like a keto diet, and that didn't necessarily work for me. I felt more inflamed. I had
Mhm.
joint pain when I was focused on doing more of that keto perspective. And then I'd never really gone persistently and exclusively plant-based until this year.
Mhm.
And I'm noticing things like I don't have period pain anymore. I'm not getting breakouts. I'm not as craving driven around that time of the month. And
Mhm.
while I was starting to get some perimenopause symptoms, they suddenly disappeared. So it's just,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely, you just got a more nutrient dense diet. I mean, much more, vitamins and minerals along with your micronutrients, your even, all the plant names that the scientists are coming out with, and then somebody does something with it. You're getting much more nutrient dense foods, which is really, really key. And so that'll happen often. And when you make a change from something you were doing to something different, your body's going to adapt there. And so obviously what you were doing in particular was causing some issues for you. So you change that and you now resolve those issues. Just watch yourself closely if you're going to continue that way over the next few years. That's what people do. Just watch and see how you feel. Eventually, you might start to feel a little sluggishness again. You might start to develop those symptoms again. Switch to add a little bit of really good animal protein as best you can, the grass-fed wild caught ideally. You may notice just a little bit here and there. You'll actually start feeling better again too.
hmm. Well, I'll keep track on that. I have to tell you, it was a little bit of a surprise. I'll be 48 in September
Mhm.
and really had made this shift gradually over time, but I've been following closely the work of Dr. Michael Greger with his work around how not to die, how not to age. He was our last guest on this podcast, so our audience will have heard from him. Um, and he is focused on whole foods, plant-based, no oil. I will tell you, I'm not giving up my oil. And I am doing a lot more beans, garbanzo beans, all these things that I have ever done at any period in my past. I'm
Mhm.
also eating a lot more dark green, like super dark green leafy vegetables like the dinosaur kale and
Mhm.
things along those lines as
Mhm.
part of a meal. But I do think what's different is the variety of vegetables I'm eating today is different than
Mhm.
at any period in the past. I mean, I'll have in a single stew lentils and sweet potatoes and kale and lemon and all these different spices, which are also going to have their micronutrients in them. I do
Mhm.
supplement with a vitamin B12 as well as my omegas every
Good.
single day. And I'm not having an issue with my iron level. I'm not having an issue with, from
Mhm.
what I've seen, my B levels, my vitamin D seems stable. But again, I am going to have to continue to check these things.
Yeah, for
Ideally,
sure.
one day I won't have to take these hypothyroid meds. That has been the long-term quest. And I'm feeling closer to that today than I did half a year ago.
Mhm.
So I'm pleased with that progression.
Good.
Now, refocusing this on men's health,
Yeah.
when they get their testosterone levels right,
Mhm.
what happens?
Oh, I mean, what happened? The reversal of a lot of their symptoms that they were experiencing, the brain fog, the brain fatigue, the memory issues, the erectile dysfunction. They'll notice, one of the first things they say besides sleep improved is they notice that, hey, my morning erection is back.
Hmm.
And that's, part of the problem. That's huge because most guys over 40 and beyond, they don't notice the morning erections at all. And so when they start noticing that, then that's a big change in their hormone levels and in their mentality and in their how they're thinking about themselves through there. So we start seeing those dramatic things occurring. They start, if they're working out, which we always say, like, you've got to be working out. We're not going to work with you if you don't work out and don't eat right and don't exercise right, because it's a waste of hormone if you're not doing it correctly. And so, they'll start noticing the lean mass gain. They start gaining
Hmm.
strength. They start adding weights onto the bars again as they're lifting. They notice that pants and clothes start fitting looser in the waistline. They notice the legs of the pants, these skinny jeans that all these people, guys, are wearing. They can't fit in them anymore because they actually have legs again, or legs for the first time. So they start noticing those physiological changes and morphological changes that they should have noted, back in their late teens.
So they get potentially to their best health later in
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
That sounds like what you're saying, because they could have been potentially like a skinny chicken leg guy in their teens and never really filled out,
Yeah.
and then just started to pack on some pounds with a reduction in their overall activity levels, like working a desk
Hmm.
job, right? Which
Yeah.
I think happens to a lot of us.
Oh, for sure.
My husband's probably guilty on that one. He's gonna be 57, so
Oh.
he's aging healthfully, and he does not have that Apple issue, but he's always been skinny legged.
But there is some genetics there for guys, and all can have big, tree trunk legs. As I get teased by my friends at the gym, and when I go, they call me the tree trunk, because I just have big, strong legs, and my boys do also. And it's like some people got the genetic gift for certain things, and I'm
Legs
not.
of a baseball player, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the running joke is, I don't have the pretty gym muscle. I don't look like a bodybuilder, but I'm farm strong and I can throw some weight around. And that's key. The stronger you are is really, really key, because that's when you have the muscle mass.
Well, and they say, like, as we age, the simple things like a sit test can dictate how old we will live to be, because if you can't get up and sit back down quite easily without having to rely on the armrests, then
Hmm.
it's essentially a marker for degraded muscle mass and how frail you become.
Hmm.
Um, it's so important to maintain muscle mass. It's so important to be able to grow strong muscles. I like to lift heavy, and
Hmm.
I am still on the forever quest to be able to do a pull up without any assisted weight. And I will say, I am closer than I've ever been. I'm only using 20 pounds assisted now. So
Good.
I think if I really worked at it for another month,
Hmm.
consistently trying it this twice a month, or twice a week rather, because I usually do arms twice a week,
Hmm.
that I could probably get there. Um,
For sure.
so, so
For
it's,
sure. It's a
you know,
hard Pull-ups are a hard movement. Some people can do them, some people can't. But if you work on it, you'll get it, and that's a really good sign of growth and tissue growth for you. Particularly for being a lady, is women tend to not have the upper body strength. I mean, for the most part, they don't have the upper body strength that guys have. But leg strength, pound for pound, women are just as strong, if not stronger, than men.
Well, I
And
mean,
that's
I have the thighs that you probably do. So yes, I've got that leg strength and have
right.
run marathons and
Yeah.
have been really able to do distance and also short burst exercises. But when it comes
Hmm.
to, being able to pull your entire body weight up, you don't realize how much it is also your back muscles and your core
Oh, for
muscles.
sure.
And
For
women
sure.
often do not work the back muscles.
Mm-mm.
So, it's something you have to consistently and persistently work at if you're going to get there for most women.
Yeah, yeah. And often guys too, when we're at the gym, we can't really, we can't turn around and be like, what does my back look like? So, it's all about the front stuff. So it's like abs, chest, shoulders, bis, and tris, maybe legs in there. But for the most part, a lot won't, work their back at all. And that's a
Mm.
weakness for there. But working like that, like you're doing, is great. Doing a pull-up is an immensely strong movement for basically your whole upper body to get it to move.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I wonder, because you said you won't work with men unless they're also committed to getting to the gym or to being physically active in some way. I imagine that could be with a home gym or
Mhm.
doing outside workouts that don't involve, a membership somewhere.
Mhm.
But what does that look like for you? What do you really advise your patients to ensure that they're doing in the day to day?
Well, we track with them, so they'll use, like you said, your watch, Apple Watch, a Whoop, the Aura Ring, whatever they can use to track their movement and data. We'll track with them, and kind of be like, hey, if, this, you get the prize if you do the work. So that, they have to be doing something. We track them through that process, and then also nutritionally, we take all of our clients through a program that we have developed that shows them how to eat right, how to clean themselves up, how to eat right, how to detoxify their body correctly, how to get the right nutrients in their system based on their physiology, from testing from there. And then the hormones there also, like we've been talking about, what hormones do they need if they need some, or do we correct and reverse the hormone issues by fixing their diet and their lifestyle? Often that works really darn well, but a lot of the times we have to do some, testosterone therapies with them too. But it's really, if you're not going to do the work, that's where you see the negative effects of the hormones. You see the increased risk for atherosclerosis. You see the increased risks for degeneration occurring from mental instability, more anger issues through there, because they're not burning it off or not burning their body the way they're supposed to.
Now, how does that story connect to our earlier discussion on the PHAT syndrome, PHAT, for polyhormonal adrenal testosterone syndrome? That's what we call it, PHAT, right? PHAT.
Exactly. Just call it PHAT. Makes it a lot easier.
How does that story connect to this one? And what impact does this have? Like, what are the root causes of it appearing? And perhaps how does it negatively impact men's health?
Yeah, it's, this is what I see in my guys that come in, is it's not just, testosterone deficiency. It's a myriad of things that are going on with them. Used to be it's partially like metabolic syndrome. It's part of, pre-diabetes, it's cholesterol, it's early degeneration in the brain. It's all these things going on. So we'll see them with insulin resistance. We'll see them with the increased body fat. We'll see the cardiovascular dysfunction, whether it's, atherosclerosis, or hypertension, or some kind of cardiomyopathy potentially there. We'll see the sarcopenia, that loss of muscle mass. We'll see the maladaptive stress syndrome, too much cortisol, too little cortisol. They're just overly stressed and the body's not functioning. We'll see the hormone imbalances, obviously, the testosterone, the estrogens, the progesterones there. We'll see neurological dysfunction in them. And then we'll see kind of that pan-membrane, kind of pan-cellular resistance. The cells just become resistant to everything. They're on this toxic milieu of junk that they're eating, stuff they're exposed to, endocrine disruptors in the environment, like you had said earlier, all the stuff they're doing that's causing their body just to resist every little thing going on. And so that's typically PHAT syndrome, is the resistance in the cells, the body fat, cardiovascular issues, the muscle mass, the stress response, the hormone imbalances, and neurological. We'll see that across the board. And nearly every single guy that comes in, we see this exact thing going on. And docs will say, you're diabetic. You have high cholesterol issues. You have, the cardiovascular, you have this stuff. And it's like, no, it's one big conglomerate thing of their body not doing what it's supposed to do. Why does it occur?
It sounds so daunting. It sounds like it's really scary. And I could frankly feel for them in this situation, just getting to the point where you feel like, that's it. I'm just in poor health and this is the life I've got now. What drugs can I patch on to be able to solve myself or solve these challenges I'm facing? So, I mean, when you hear that battery, that long list of symptoms, I mean, it sounds like pack it up and go home, right? It kind of does. Like, I mean, where do you start?
See their regular doctor, because it's now they're on insulin or the diabetes medication. They're on a cholesterol medication. Now they're on the complications of that, some other medication there. Their blood pressure medication. They're potentially, maybe the doc even gave them some testosterone in that issue. Then they're like, at a point, they start getting some neuropathies going on from the diabetes. And then the docs go, hey, well, let's put you on. Now the big thing to do is they give them antidepressants for the neuropathy. Like that combination, they've shown antidepressants long-term actually cause neurological issues.
I mean, and you're talking about now somebody in their 40s or 50s on 5 or 6 different drugs, potentially for the rest of their lives. Well, it may not have been necessary in the beginning just because their doctor didn't really know how to treat them through a lifestyle perspective. Or perhaps they just didn't spend the time with them to get to understand how they could help them, which I think is so common. Like, I go to a medical facility as a part of an HMO. Most of the doctors I see there are like, they've got you on a schedule of 8 minutes. Like, that's about how long they're expected to spend with you. Now, my personal doctor within the system, she'll spend a half hour with me. And I feel like, so grateful for that half an hour. But the reality is it takes longer to get to understand what somebody's health challenges really are than definitely that 8 minutes, and a half an hour usually isn't enough either. So how does what you do differ from what people might expect from the standard medical system that so many of us have become used to in this day and age?
Sadly, that's the case. And that's an insurance driven model. It's not about healthcare. It's about sick care at that point. And we're in a sick driven economy for healthcare. for sick care. It's not about a person's health whatsoever. And unfortunately, the doctor's hands are tied. When the doc's in the system, just like a person is, it's literally the cattle call. Is you got a person every 8 minutes, let's roll. And that's what they're going to go through. You're allowed one thing to talk about for about 4 minutes, and then you're done. Our model is completely different. Is we take the time with you. I mean, our first visit's an hour. Follow-ups are typically a half hour, but we have our health coaches. You see our health coaches. We do heart rate variability, heart math here also. So you get a lot of stuff with seeing us. When we see a person, we sit down, we have a conversation, we talk. What's going on with you? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What your goals are? What do you want to see happen? What are your fears? What's your why? We sit down and talk about all those things. And then we go into, what do we need to figure out what's going on? What labs do we need to figure out physiologically? Is it a comprehensive blood work? Is it the Dutch test like we talked about earlier? Is it an organic acids test? We use a metabolomics one. How is your body working? Blood's going to show us disease process, low hormones, those type of things. It's not going to tell us how it's working or not. Organic acids is going to tell us how your mitochondria are working. What do your cells look like? How inflamed are they? How's your nervous system, your neurotransmitters working? How inflamed is that nervous system? How do the cells look through there? Are they inflamed or not inflamed? Are they breaking down too much? Is there a lot of zombie cells hanging around? Do we have to get rid of those? How is the liver and kidney detoxifying your system? And how
I'm glad you brought up zombie cells, but you can't throw a term like zombie cells out there without telling people what we're talking about, because I don't want people thinking they've got like some necrotic flesh that's like zombified in their bodies. So what is a zombie cell? Why should we be worried about them?
Sure. So what I define a zombie cell as is basically these cells that are metabolically inactive. They're not serving us, but they're still pulling nutrients from us and still surviving in our system. And so they're kind of a zombie cell. They're just a synthetic. They're just hanging out doing nothing but wasting our energy on themselves and not us. So part of that process is getting those cleaned out of the cell. And it doesn't take a lot to really clean out. I mean, just a couple times a month.
Is that something that the standard autophagy? Is that something that the standard autophagy process would help with? So that's
Typically,
essentially like a state where if you're fasting routinely, like even doing intermittent fasting, that can support the removal of these zombie cells. But I understand there's also micronutrients that can support that journey. Am I correct?
Yeah, for sure. Anti-senolytic ones are really, really good through there to help your body get those out. Glutathione is a really good one that really works well through there. There's a few other ones. My mind just went there. The curcumin helps with it. There's a bunch of different ones that'll help get those cells out of there. If you're exercising and eating right, for the most part, those keep those at bay and break them down because your body needs to recycle the cells for growth. But if you're not, these cells are just hanging out in your system itself. You need to get rid of them. But even taking
do the sulforaphanes help with that? So that's like the broccoli, all the brassica stuff. I'm allergic to broccoli, so I do cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and all these guys. But that's the sulforaphanes, the kale, which helps to kind of scrub the zombie cells out of your system if you're trying to also do it with healthy foods, right?
Yeah, food is number one. Food is medicine. If you're not gonna change your diet, literally and I honestly, clients, if you're not going to change your diet, and that's part of our curriculum, our program that we put clients through, they go through an online curriculum that's only about 30, 40 minutes a week for either 4 or 6 months, typically, depending on how they are, how much time they need and support they need. And that teaches them all the stuff they need to know that we just can't sit down with. I mean, we just can't. I don't have enough hours in the day or the week to sit down to see the number of people that I need to educate all the time. So you have the correct number of visits that we need to see you with, follow-up labs, do those, the coaches see you, and you do the curriculum. And that's how we get so successful. We have amazing results from those and stats from our programs. And that's the key. If you can't do that, I can't work with you because I can't see you once every 6 weeks or once every 3 months or once every 6 months and get anywhere in your life. And nobody can. And that's the model of medicine, is literally like, see you in 6 months, see you in a year. And okay, what are we checking for now? Oh, well, you're getting worse, but here's another med. Look where we're at as a society and as a health of our society. It's not good.
Well, what you're essentially talking about is a diet and lifestyle intervention that's somewhat longer term and that's supported through your group. I was
Exactly.
really encouraged to see some recent research published by Dr. Dean Ornish using a similar approach specifically for Alzheimer's. Early onset Alzheimer's, he was able to run 51 patients through his system that he uses in his practice, really focused on whole foods, plant-based, no oil, that same diet that Dr. Michael Greger puts people on,
Mhm.
but with a battery of supplements and also physical activity, meditation. I mean, it was
Mhm.
an all-encompassing kind of program that he worked with people to put them on and then monitor them over time. And now he's working to roll this out. This has produced more promising results than any drug intervention so far
Yep.
to date. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
think this is just one example of diet and lifestyle impacting a health condition. The health condition is growing as at epidemic proportions. And
Mhm.
guess what? Food and lifestyle as medicine is proving out to do a better job of addressing these sorts of health concerns, even with the
Right.
potential of reversing the progression of early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Now, did any of us think that the results were gonna be quite as strong? I mean, I was very skeptical, frankly,
Oh.
and I'm happy to see that we're able to prove this out in a clinical setting.
Mhm.
Now, of course, you're not physically there in person with all of your patients because a lot of what you do is online. You're able to
Mhm.
practice the way you do across state borders. Is that correct?
For the most part, we can see as long as we see them in person one time, the first time, it's not a problem to follow up with them for the most part wherever they are.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
you're up in the Pacific Northwest, is that
Yeah,
correct?
we're up in North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, exactly. I just want to circle back real quick. Like you said, you were kind of surprised by Dean's, you know, results. I'm truly not surprised at all because if you
I'm
look,
surprised that they were as strong. I expected
yeah,
them to be able to produce results because he's seeing them in his clinical practice, like, that's
yeah,
why he undertook the study in the first place,
yeah,
but that they were quite as strong, like, to be able to
yeah,
demonstrate reversal is huge, even if it's only in a third of the populace.
yeah, yeah,
Granted, this is only 51 patients, but that's
mhm,
still something, and it's
yeah,
statistically significant results. This is always movement in the right direction in my book. If you're looking specifically at diet and lifestyle first, I mean, my goal in life has always been to be on 0 meds,
mhm,
all the way throughout my life. Now, I've not been successful in doing that because I have to take a thyroid medication, but my doctors have worked with me to help me understand, like,
yeah.
"You take vitamin D, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, it's not that different." So
And truly a small. And I always tell clients too, because a lot of our clients want to be off medications. And I tell them, I said, hopefully we can get you there. But
mhm,
I said, worst case scenario, you're on a couple supplements, you're eating the way you should, you're exercising the way you should, and unfortunately, you just need this maybe microscopic dose of a medication, just because your body has to have it the way it functions.
mhm,
It just can't be fixed all the way. I'm okay with that. Like that's totally fine because we got you to where you're less and less medication. You're to a point where this just a little bit, that's okay. If we start seeing you reverse what you've been doing, not eating right, not exercise, not doing the lifestyle things, and you start seeing, the med starts increasing or the next, then we have to revisit it and go like, okay, we need to reset here and go back. But again, like I said, Dean's been around for, I mean, when I was an undergrad, a long time ago, in the early 90s, that it was when I was in cardiac rehab, he was the one that was showing you could reverse heart disease by a vegetarian diet,
yep,
plain and simple. And it was like, we knew that back then. It was like, well, duh, because you get them off the junk, the fast
mhm,
food, the processed food, and all the stuff that they're exposed to, which is all it is carbs, fats, and proteins. It's not any nutrient density in there whatsoever. You're going to see a change because you're giving the body the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, all of the plant names, like you said, that are scientists are coming up with now. Let them figure that out, and we just say, oh, "Great, we know it's in there now. Just keep eating it," and we just see the health return to people. And it's not
yeah,
surprising because you get that the body, like I said, in those toxic states, those cells just become resistant. They become hard basketballs versus soft Nerf balls. And so in the hard state, information cannot get in and out of those cells. They become rigid.
mhm,
They don't communicate well. So if you start getting those cells to be soft and supple, start getting nutrients into them, getting the membranes of those cells where the EPA and DHA come in, that phospholipid bilayer, that softness there. Get those soft again, information is going to start to flow. The brain is primarily cholesterol and fat. So if it is inflamed, really bad fat and cholesterol, it isn't going to work in that same thing. The neurons need to move and create memory. They start slowing down that rigidity. It isn't going to happen. So changing the diet, getting a healthy diet, getting nutrient density. I will agree with you that, the oils, like, dude, you got to have oils. We need fat. You're going to see those changes. We see it all the time clinically. I'm glad they're finally, and the small studies that are done were great. What's her name in Iowa, the doc with the MS? Her stuff, she got the research studies to show dietary lifestyle changes can reverse MS.
Are you talking about Dr. Terry Walls, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Terry. Yeah. So, it's been being proven and proven and proven. There's just not a lot of money in telling people to eat right and exercise.
Well, and I think the part that doctors lean back on often is that it's an issue of compliance. Like, people really do want to be able to just take a pill and, call it a day. And some things are just not that easy. And frankly, eating whole foods, plant-based, or eating a whole foods diet that doesn't have packaged foods in it is a little harder to do in the day-to-day. How militant do you want to be? How militant do you have to be to achieve your best health? That's all going to vary on a by person basis. And also just what your preferences and lifestyle really are. Like, I have two young boys at home. I'm not super militant either, right? Like, they have their dietary preferences. Sometimes I eat a completely different meal than them, and I'm making myself a batched stew that I have for dinner for the week that has a lot of stuff in it that they just don't like because it's too spicy for them. And I like the heat. So, that's okay too. But I've found something that works for my family. And I still make them, their chicken nuggies that they love and stuff like that, because 6 and 9-year-olds, you're not going to be able to have all the wins in the world.
Right. What fight do I want to fight today? Right.
Right. And frankly, just like sometimes it's the fight of getting the meal had, eat the food, so I don't want them just running to the fridge to grab whatever else can be handy quickly for them or some snack food from the pantry. You want them to be getting whole nutrition. And so that's what I'm focused on doing, making sure they get all their core nutrition needs met. Now, I wondered if you could share for the audience here, if you have a particular protocol, like Dr. Terry Walls has her Walls protocol, Dr. Dean Ornish has his protocol for, avoiding Alzheimer's. Do you have a testosterone protocol or something simple that you could share as a starter resource for our audience?
Yeah, it's definitely, if you, for the audience here, if they want to go to my clinical website, lakesideholistic.com, and then do /free book, they can get my free book. That's the Hormone Weight Loss Nutrition Plan. And it takes them through a 30-day reset, how to do stuff really simply, how to get easier whole foods, and a lot of recipes in there to cover for the month too, along with some simple diet and along with some simple exercise and meditation things. They can download that for free. I can tell you many of the people who potentially become clients grab the book first, and they're kind of like, I'm not sure I want to become a client. Let me just play with the book for a little bit. Most get the book and become a client within the first month because they notice within the first few weeks, they've already dropped 10 to 15 pounds just because they're eating good and starting to exercise really easily versus like jumping full bore into, a diet and lifestyle itself.
That's great. Now, we've already talked about a couple of your non-negotiables, which are they have to be physically active and they have to be committed to eating better. And what that better is may be defined in that book as well. Are there any other non-negotiables that you like to see from people that you work with?
Yeah. Complainers, people that find every excuse why not to do something. It's just true. I mean, when I do talks and everything, I tell them, like, who do I work with? A players, like those who get it, those who understand that they're at a crossroads in their life and they're staring down that barrel of like what's ahead because they've seen it with their families, they've seen it with their parents or aunts and uncles or grandparents or friends' parents, and they're like, I don't want that. They understand that process. Those A players who are ready to do the work and want to do the work, and it's not a lot of work. We talking like, oh, work is this 4-letter word. Like, it's not. You're changing your life for the better and getting away from that pattern that's really taking you down that road. So that's who we work with. But who we don't work with are the ones that like, well, what about this? And what about that? And well, can I do this or can I do that? It's like, I know one of my coaches from years ago, one of my swim coaches, when I did Ironman, we were all adults at the time. He's an adult. He coached Olympic swimmers and college NCAA champions. And he said, listen, you're all adults here. Here's what I'm going to tell you to do for the workout for today. You can make the choice if you're going to do it or not. I don't care, but I'm here. You're here. So do the workout. But if you don't want to do it, I'm not going to coach you. I've kind of taken that as my mentality too. Like, if you're not going to do the work, we have it laid out and it works, then I'm not going to argue with you about you not doing something.
Yeah. Well, you remind me of my horseback trainer there, because she'd say, I needed to pull my stirrups up one more notch to be able to get over the higher jumps and, not fall out of the saddle on the other side. Right. And not that I was falling out of the saddle, but I'm just like, God, it put pressure on my knee. It didn't feel right. Ended up being a saddle misfit issue. Like the saddle, not that it was a misfit, but it didn't fit me, a misfit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I had to get an updated saddle in order to be able to do the work. So sometimes you're going to need a tool to help you get there. And maybe that's personalized coaching or the right supplement or drug treatment for you to help you get over that hurdle. I've heard a lot of negatives and also some positives about drugs like Ozempic of late. I wonder if you have an opinion on that front.
Great medication when used correctly. We use it with clients, but again, they're in a program. They're not just doing the drug to lose the weight, because what happens is you lose your muscle mass, and that's what it shows. If you're doing Ozempic, not changing how you're eating, still kind of eating the same way, but less, because it slows down digestion. You just can't eat and you're not hungry. But it works really, really, really well. But if you just do that stuff and not anything else, what happens is you lose the muscle mass, you lose the fat mass. But when you go off of it, your metabolism is slower than what it was to begin with. So just like the research shows, you're going to gain the weight back and then some. So our clients that we work with on it, because we have some, like they're doing the process, they're doing everything correctly, we're getting their body balanced, they're still having some stubbornness of some weight loss, we don't have a problem adding it in. And they'll start losing the weight. We'll titrate up and then titrate down with it till we get to the weight loss that they want to achieve. But they're still working out. We're still tracking it. We use the in-body scanner to track their lean mass and fat mass. So we see that loss of fat mass. When you lose weight, you're still going to lose some lean mass. But if you don't have a lot of lean mass to begin with, we're going to bump that up and make sure you're getting the lean mass up in that process. So we're okay with it. I don't have a problem with it. Again, when used correctly, just like thyroid medication for yourself, when used correctly. Just like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DH, when used correctly, or even, part of the anti-aging, reverse aging stuff is using metformin, an anti-diabetic drug. Yeah, it'll work, but it's not, you're going to have side effects from it, and it's not doing what you think it's doing. So, you can use more natural substances to help with that, or you can change what you're doing and get your body adaptive as best as possible with food and exercise.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the basic route is the same across the board, food and exercise.
Yep.
As far as any protocol you have for supplements, are there generalized few, let's say, that you go to for most of the people that you see?
For the most part, once they're done and through their curriculum and have gotten their issues resolved, then we look at what they need. Often it's just a simple multivitamin, really good omega fatty acids, and probably some vitamin D and some B supplements. That's about it. Just like 4 things for the most part. They don't need a lot. If they still have some issues, we'll retest the metabolomics test, the organic acids, to see how their physiology has changed. I do them on myself every single year, the metabolomics test and the Dutch test in my blood work, to know how my body's changing and what I need to catch early and fix if there's anything kind of showing up. But those are kind of the 4 basics for a majority of people that work pretty darn well across the board. Once we know, from a metabolomics test or blood work or Dutch, what they may need in additional, then we can modify from there.
Yeah. What's involved in a metabolomics test? Because I don't think I've ever had one.
It's an organic acids test. So it's a urine test. It's going to test how your body, if we think about it, is blood work's kind of checking what's hanging out there. But to really see what your body's doing, we got to see what it's metabolizing. And so that's through waste. So urine is a waste product. So we check that to see how the Krebs cycle is working or not working, how the dysbiosis, if there's in the GI tract there, all the little markers on there that kick off in the metabolism from biochemistry, those are going to be in there so we can really see what your body is doing in particular versus everybody else that we'll see at the same time.
All right. Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well,
I love it.
I want to just say I thank you so much for the work that you do. I think it's really important. And with more than 2 decades in service, that you and your wife, who's also a physician, and your partner are really able to support people's health journeys over the longer term is really, it's just commendable work. I know it's a lot, and I appreciate that you've offered a free resource to our community again. So if you could repeat that, so I'm sure to write it down correctly and include it in show notes, that would be amazing.
Sure. So if you go to lakesideholistic.com/free book.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Jerry Bailey.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast again.
It was such a pleasure to have Dr. Bailey on the podcast today. I will, as always, include the many ways that you can find out more about his work at Lakeside Holistic with show notes, including that link, lakesideholistic.com/free books. So I'll be sure to include that link with show notes. You can always visit orlonutrition.com for our complete blog, which will include features that you won't find anywhere else. And remember, if you're trying to jumpstart your health today and you've never taken an omega-3, let's just say there's no time to start like the present. You can jump right on over to orlonutrition.com and buy a Tested by You kit, which is a 6-month supply of the omega-3 product of your choice, omega-3, active DHA, or active prenatal DHA. And with that, you're going to receive 2 omega-3 index test kits. This enables to test your levels of omega-3s today and again after 4 months. As a reminder, this is one particular way that you can figure out where you are and also where you get by supplementing for a few months' time. It takes time to get these omegas right in your system so you can flush out those lipids that make your cell walls too rigid, just like what Dr. Jerry was sharing with us earlier, and get that fluid, flexible cell membrane to be the commonplace cell throughout your entire body. This way you can traffic nutrients better, you can have better cell-to-cell communication, your neurons and dendrites will operate better in your brain, and so you'll just feel clearer. So if you haven't ever taken an omega-3, it's a perfect time to try today. And if it's something that you haven't been super good about, this is also a great program for you as well. All of these omegas are in their polar lipid form, so they're up to 3 times better absorbed than other omegas on the market. And they're algae sourced, so they're from the original source, completely pure, clean, sustainable, and grown at our facility in Iceland. So as it stands, if you participate in this today, you'll get $100 worth of free tests. And I want to go ahead and encourage you to use the simple code of NWC at checkout. If you use the code NWC at checkout, you'll get an extra 10% off your order. And this is already a dramatically reduced price. So I believe all in all, you'll be spending about $170 for a 6-month supply of omega-3 DHA or prenatal DHA. Plus, you'll be getting those 2 tests. It's an incredible value. Now, I encourage you to go ahead and follow us at Orlo Nutrition. And if you have any questions today, you can go ahead and send me an email to hello@orlonutrition.com. As we close today's show, I hope that you'll raise a cup of your favorite beverage with me as I say my closing words. Here's to your health.
Thanks for listening to Nutrition Without Compromise. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to learn more, visit orlonutrition.com and join our mailing list. You'll gain access to complete show notes, features, and informative blogs, because nutrition shouldn't be an either-or.